Hello. Hello to everybody coming in and entering these cubes. Thank you all for joining us. This is the 82nd radical poetry reading, Wednesday afternoon poetry reading put on by the Brooklyn Rail as part of the New Social Experience series. I'm your host, Anselm Berrigan. I'm also the poetry editor of the Brooklyn Rail. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm in an unusual place. Today, we've got a reading that's been organized by Ostap Kin, and we're grateful to Ostap for putting this together. We're going to hear a number of poems by various poets from the Ukraine, and our lineup today includes Ilya Kaminsky, Dzvinia Orlowsky, Max Rosochinsky, and Luba Yakumanchuk. Ilya is going to read first, and Ostap will conclude the reading. Please keep an eye on the chat for information on the works by the poets you'll be hearing, both those reading and the works of other poets they'll be reading. And we're just going to get right into it. Ilya Kaminsky was born in Odessa in 1977 and arrived in the United States in 1993 when his family was granted asylum by the American government. He's the author of Deaf Republic, Dancing in Odessa, and has co-edited and co-translated many other books, including the Ecco Anthology of International Poetry and Dark Elderberry Branch, poems of Marina Tsvetaeva. His poems have been translated into over 20 languages, and his books have been published in many countries. In 2019, Kaminsky was selected by BBC as one of the 12 artists that changed the world. Ilya is also one of the legitimately good presences on Twitter. Please welcome Ilya Kaminsky.
Thank you so much, and thank you for organizing this series, and thank you, Ostap, for inviting us as well. I'm just going to read translations today from poets who are in Ukraine or from Ukraine. All of my translations are done with Katie Ferris, so please bear that in mind as well. The first is a poem by Serhiy Zhadan. It's called The First Aerial Bombardment. The first aerial bombardment. The street. A woman zigzags the streets, a pause by the green grocery, she hesitates. Must she buy bread? There is not. Is there enough? Not enough bread. Must she buy bread now or tomorrow? She hesitates, stares at us, stares at her phone. Her phone rings. Mother. She speaks to her mother without listening. She shuts by the window of green grocery, at the window of green grocery, as if she is shouting at herself in the window, slaps the phone, zigzags the street, shouts at her invisible, impossible mother. Tears at the impossibility of forgiving her mother. Forget the bread, and each living drink on this green earth. Forget, leave it alone. The morning, it begins. The first aerial bombardment. The next poem is from Lyuba Yakimchuk. See the tail that wags the dog. See the tail that wags the dog. Language is speaking the man. Look, the shovel is making a hole in the grave digger. Brushes paint artist into walls. The heap is waiting the dancer. See that oar is rowing every person in the boat. Don't you see? Here is a head that thinks a man into a man. The next one is by Boris Khersonsky. Boris writes both in Russian and Ukrainian. This is translation from Ukrainian. The poem is called "The Painted in the Medical History." The printed in the medical history. They printed in the medical history. There was no Holodomor. It was the stable delusions of Anna Mikhailenko, a teacher of Ukrainian literature. For 7 years, she was in a special psychiatric hospital. It was a hybrid hospital, a madhouse and a prison. It was a time of hybrid hospitals. Now is a time of hybrid war. 7 years is a biblical phrase, and Jacob served Laban 7 years for Rachel because he loved her. 7 years Rachel calls for her children. She can't count herself because they don't exist. And I will end by reading 2 poems, one shorter and another slightly longer, by Lyuba Yakimchuk. Those are very new poems. He is writing them right now. He is a poet from Bucha. Letters of the alphabet go to war, clinging to one another, standing up, forming words no one wants to shut. Sentences that are blown by the minds in the avenue, stories shelled by multiple rocket launches. A Ukrainian word is ambushed. Though the broken window of a letter D, other countries watch how a letter I loses its heart, how the roof of a letter M falls. The language in a time of war can be understood. Inside the sentences, a whole. No one wants to die, no one speaks. But the hospital bed of a letter I, less professors it is too shy to use. You can see light through the clumsy sewing hopes of a letter F. The soft sign has its stand turned out due to disagreements regarding the etymology of torture. There is too much alphabet in the hospital rooms of my country, too much alphabet, no place to speak apostrophe, painful of symbols, showering us with words incomprehensible, like man who in wartime refuse to speak. And finally, the last poem is also by Lyuba. It is called "Our Faces Tossed About in This Land." Our faces tossed about in this land. Russian soldiers drop from the sky, clinging to the parachutes of their faces. To the corners of our lips, their fingers hook. This parachute is torn, and no longer our cheeks, our noses, our teeth. In the mirror, I do not see my face. They're climbing down the stairs of the sky. Our faces, our torn, swollen faces, are clattering the earth, faces dirty, our faces tossed among the shards of this day. Russian soldiers park a tank in our yard, clamber into the apartment, read our books, not understanding Ukrainian, English, Polish, Belarusian, Czech, Latvian, Romanian, German, French, Georgian, Swedish, Croatian, Turkish, Spanish, and even in Russian. Please explain this poem, a soldier asks our neighbors, while tossing them against the walls, asks our neighbors to explain a line break, while rating our wives a third time, a fourth time, a fifth, asks children of our neighbors to explain while they're locked up in a basement, where our children are without food, in a basement. As our face tremble as if from a wind. How is it a soldier asks? I don't understand words. If ours is a nation that leads the most in the world. Russian soldiers are cooking a soup with vegetables snatched from our barns, refrigerator. They're tossing our books to the light, the stove. Burning are the fine editions of youngest Ukrainian poets and poets of 20s, 210s, 1990s, 1980s, 60s, 50s, and so on, until the end of Ukrainian literature. Burning are translations and books in the original, contemporary Spanish, and classics. On fire are all the authors who influenced us. Fire cuts on each book we haven't read or planning to read. Burning are our poems published and unpublished and rewritten and rewritten. And this poem about our faces tossed around in the backyard with a flame. The Russian soldier finally can go the soup. I'm going to end here. I'm at 1:14. So let's go about the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilya. Thank you so much for that reading, for reading those poems. Our next reader is going to be Luba Yakumanchuk, who's a poet, a screenwriter, and playwright, born in 1985 in Pervomaisk, Luhansk region. She's the author of several full-length poetry collections, including Apricots of Donbass, that received the International Poetic Award of the Kovalev Foundation. Her poems have been translated into 20 languages. She's also authored 2 film scripts. She's received numerous awards, including 3 of Ukraine's most prestigious awards for young poets. And recently she performed the poem Prayer in the Free Project by John Lennon during the Grammy Awards. Kiev's New Time magazine listed Yakimchuk among the 100 most influential people in the arts in Ukraine. Please welcome her to the Rail Reading Series.
Hello, everyone. Maybe I'll read the first poem in Ukrainian, just to give you an image of Ukrainian language, and then I'll continue in English. I will read from my book, Apricots of Donbass, which was published recently in the United States. And first poem, it's of old age in Ukrainian, firstly. Від старості. Померли дід і баба, в один день померли, в одну годину, в одну хвилину. Люди говорили, що від старості. Здохла їхня курка, їхня коза та собака, а кішки не було вдома. І люди говорили, що від старості. Розвалилась їхня хата, сарай став руїною, і погріб зверху присипало землею. Люди говорили, що від старості розвалились. Прийшли їхні діти ховати діда з бабою. Оля була вагітна, Сергій був п'яний, а Соня мала 3 рочки. І вони теж померли, а люди говорили, що від старості. Холодний вітер обірвав жовте листя і поховав під ним діда, бабу, Олю, Сергія, Соню, які померли від старості. Of old age, it will be a translation by Svetlana Lavachkina. Of old age, an old man and old woman died on the same day, on the same hour, on the same minute. People said they died of old age. Their hen died, as died their goat and their dog, but the cat wasn't home, and people said they died of old age. Their house fell apart, their shed turned into a ruin, the cellar was powdered over with dust. People said they were just too old. Their children came to bury the old man and the old woman. Oля was pregnant, Serhiy was drunk, Sonya was only 3. And they died too, and people said they had died of old age. A cold wind plucked off the yellow leaves and buried under them the old man, the old woman, Oля, Serhiy, and Sonya, who all died of old age. Next poem, How I Killed. I remain connected to my family over the phone, with all my family connection wire typed. They are curious, whom do I love more, mom or dad? What makes my grandma cry out into the receiver? Intrigued as ever by my sister will fuel drama with her boyfriend, who used to be my boyfriend. All of my phone connections are blood relations. My blood is very deep. They must know what percentage is Ukrainian, Polish, Russian, and if there are any gypsy, they must know how much of it I gave and to whom. They must know whether that's my blood sugar dropping or the roof collapsing over me, and whether it's possible to build borders out of membranes. Hundreds of graves have been dug between me and my mother, and I don't know how to leap over them. Hundreds of mortal shells fly between me and my father, and I can see them as birds. The metal door of a basement secured with a shovel separates me from my sister. A screen of prayers hangs between me and my grandmother, and silky walls muting out the noise, and I heard nothing. It's so simple to stay connected over the phone, adding means to calling cards, tranquilizers to restless nights. It must feel so intoxicating to listen to someone else's blood throbbing in your earphones as my blood clots into a bullet. Bang! This poem was translated by Oksana Maksimchuk and Max Rosochinsky. And next poem is Knife. With relatives, we share a table and graves. With enemies, only graves. One such candidate comes to share a grave with me, says to me, I'm bigger than you, I'm harder than you, I'm tougher than you, sticks knife after knife into my stomach and below, knife after knife. His pressure spring-like, but he is smaller than us, he is softer than us, because he's only got one knife and there are plenty of us at the table, and each has their own butt and each has their own cut. Says to me, I'm sharper blade cut you, I'm thicker blade cut you. Chip chop, the last one is dead. Hold on, they say, hold on. And we hold onto our table. From the gun muzzle, we all drink our bullets. We pour our enemy 1, 2. Knife was translated by Svetlana Lavochkina, and next poem is Caterpillar. A contract in the coat, a wedding band slips off her ring finger. It clinks and rolls on the pavement. Her hands tremble like leaves as a caterpillar draws near its track, crawls by her daughter's feet and stops. Two men approach, order her to open her hands as if for a clap. They peer into her passport and pass it between themselves. They press and squeeze her thumbs on the index finger They look at a burn instead of careless from shooting a sniper rifle. They call her by her nickname, or maybe it's someone else's, Butch. They strip her, they prop her, they lay her down, enter her, cursing. 9 of them, her favorite number, wearing blue bathrobes, her favorite color, second-hand Nikes, her favorite shoes. 9 of them, for one disheveled, not a bitch, but a woman. Her little girl curls up like a fetus, looks on without tears. She picks up her mom's wedding band, holds it in her mouth like a dog with a bone, and watches a caterpillar devour the green town. Caterpillar was translated by Oksana Maksimchuk and Max Rosochinsky. And next poem is Decomposition. Nothing changes on the Eastern Front. Well, I've had it up to here. At the moment of death, metal gets hot and people get cold. Don't talk me about Luhansk. It's long since turned into Hansk. Lu had been razed to the ground, to the crimson pavement. My friends are held hostage, and I can't reach them. I can't do Netsk to pull them out of the basements from under the rubble. Yet here you are, writing poems, ideally smooth poems, high-minded gilded poems, beautiful as embroidery. There is no poetry about war, just decomposition. Only letters remain, and they all makes a single sound. Pervomaisk has been split into Pervo and Maisk, into particles in primeval flux. War is over again, yet peace has not come. And where is my Deb Alcevo? No poet will be born there again, no human being. I stare into the horizon. It has narrowed into a triangle. Sunflowers dip their heads in the field, black and dried out, like me. I have gotten so very old. No longer Luba, just a bar. This poem was translated by Oksana Maksimchuk and Max Rosochinsky. And the last poem for today, it's Crow Wheels. When the city was destroyed, they started fighting over the cemetery. It was right before Easter. Wooden crosses over the freshly dug graves put out the paper blossoms, red, blue, yellow, neon green, orange, raspberry pink. Joyful relatives poured vodka for themselves and for the dead straight into their graves. And the dead asked for more and more and more, and their relatives kept pouring. The carnival went on, but at some point a young man set off a tripwire at the grave of his mother-in-law, and old man gazed into the sky and lost it forever. A fat man smashed his shot glass on the fence around his wife's grave. Glass fell at his feet like hail. Easter came. Now a live crow sits on the grave of Anna Andreevna Ravanova instead of headstone, BTR 80 wheels. Rest of the cemetery nest of the Kolesnik family, where lie buried Maria Viktorovna, Pilip Vasilyevich, and Mykola Pilipovich. What are they to me, those wheels and that crow? I can no longer remember. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for reading those poems, and thank you for doing what you're doing. And we're now going to hear from Max Rosochinsky, He's a scholar, translator, and poet from Simferopol, Crimea. His translations have appeared in Words Without Borders, Poetry International, Modern Poetry and Translation, and Best European Fiction series from Dalkey Archive Press. With Oksana Maksimchuk, he won in first place in the 2014 Joseph Brodsky Stephen Spender translation competition and co-edited Words for War, a NEH-winning anthology of contemporary Ukrainian war poetry. His poetry manuscript has been nominated for the PEN International New Voices Award. He's the co-translator of Apricots of Donbass, The Voices of Babyn Yar, and others. He's got a PhD in Slavic languages and literatures from Northwestern University. Please welcome Max Rosochinsky.
Thank you very much. Today I will be reading poems by Marina Tsvetaeva from the collection titled The Voices of Babyn Yar. I co-translated these poems with Oksana Maksimchuk. These poems, they do not have titles, so sometimes I will be giving the first line when I am introducing them. And yet I will utter it. And yet I will utter it. And yet I'll accept it all by saying, not saying, like walking into the sea. War means an obscurity, a terrible dark of woe. It means a despair, a naked and piercing grief. I went to Dnipro last night, not all the way to Dnipro. I watched from the distance its waters, its rolling waves, the yellowing leaves aflame and the ancient boats peaked with decaying planks from under the surface. White seagulls were searching in vain for a witness to their Anavian cries, mourning the dying town. I cried out non-humanly, stopped myself, bit my tongue, and now I will utter it. Presence is always twofold. Where center drilled beats, a bullet goes in and out. Not one set apart, where all of us strung together. Sun reaches its zenith, as if it has risen up to witness us from above, and now we are dying here. How we are meandering, watching the river flow, because we get slaughtered. Adelka, Miriam, Deborah, all lie in the ravine. I bear such a great woe. It turns heart to stone and makes the soul turn transparent. It grows ever thinner, and that means no less than death. Its being is twofold, for death really means together, with Deborah, Adelka, and Miriam, as far as celestial depth, as far as Dnipro and its banks in the timeless ether. Next poem. I hold the bullet under my tongue. It tastes of plumbum, transporting me to the verge of a change as the sky gets closer. My heart feels as small as a throbbing vein beating softly. Don't be afraid, I tell it. Don't cry, you must breathe and speak. Snella, Snella, they shout, but it's hard to keep going when you know this is it, the end. Your entire body stinks of death. The wounds that no longer heal, blooming scabs. It's a wonder I somehow still managed to put one foot in front of the other, passing corpses of those who'd collapsed, coatless and barefoot. I am used to it now, not averting my gaze, may go for a closer look. If I want to know why that woman, for instance, got shot in the back, though she so loved singing and all that she wanted was love. I enter a burning cloud, a wheezing fire. Here is another body, a child's, so small, all alone. I am forced to lower my eyes. I'd pick it up in my arms, but every minute's a bullet that swells below. My tongue is a nail driven into the heart. I am following in the footsteps of Ezekiel, Aaron, Ora, Adam, Micha, Yehuda, Sarah. They are right here before me. We enter a cloud of smoke. Next poem, I would collapse in the street. I would collapse in the street right here or around the corner, but the guards wouldn't tolerate any disorder. In my bag, I've collected some things for the road, just as people are wont to do at the end of times. Keys and letters and photographs and a brooch, cash hardly worth mentioning. a few banknotes. Treading across the dust as if it were heavy snow, we avoid shell holes, bodies, traces of waste. They burst in, told us to pack what we value most. All I took was a blanket, some water, a loaf of bread. The policeman frowned at the shabbiness of the place. It imploded under his gaze as I too collapse. I depart, never to return. I comprehend, I see our fate through the throbbing of this heavy, dense light. I would die right here in the street. That's why I don't weep, setting my bag on the cobblestone. I carry only a name. I am Rachel. Next poem. If I survive, I'll simply be a tattoo, like any dad, like mine or Raya's. I'll carry gingerbreads to give away. I'll simply be a dad. Dads do not die. I'll have some kids, like Yonya and myself, and 3 or 4 automobiles. I'll sport a scar on my right hand and keep a dove coat and albino eyes. I'll have a mama, gentle kind, with hands that feel so soft, so warm. I will survive. I have no right to die here in this ditch, alone, without my mom. At the train station. At the train station, 2 found rest in a third one's arms. The younger one, on top of your heart, the older one, by your side. The station sparrows have a new cause for alarm, guessing the language so as to avoid a stray bullet. Figures collecting rubbish, the extraneous, useless bodies, the useful ones, lined up into ranks. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The sparrows observe it all from their posts, over, above, beside. Note the restraint and order. No millet but bullet holes in the coats. Anyone here speak Yiddish? She's lying around like a Jewess with her 2 kids, idling shamelessly in a public place, motionless, bodies rigid. Sparrows suddenly turn into flying targets. A submachine gun plays a game with them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All things pass. A train comes to a full stop. Toot, toot, toot. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Chimes in the harmonica. The next poem, In the Room. In the room there hung, in the room there hung, in the room there hung, wedding dress, white and long. Now I put it away, now I put it away, now I put it away, for my David got killed. Einsatzgruppe Sonderkommando, Einsatzgruppe Sonderkommando, Einsatzgruppe Sonderkommando, NSS execution squad. We were happy, David and I. We were happy, David and I. We were happy, David and I. David and I were in love. In the morning, his mother came. In the morning, his mother came. In the morning, his mother came, asked me if I already knew. Didn't know, didn't sleep all night. Didn't know, didn't sleep all night. Didn't know, didn't sleep all night. Heard some shots from the yard. I'm a mother no more, she said. I'm a mother no more, she said. I'm a mother no more, she said. May you, woman, be cursed. He is gone and you are still alive. He is gone and you are still alive. He is gone and you are still alive. That's your punishment, Virka. That's my punishment, Mama dear. So I sway and I sing a ditty, drowning out the shots from the yard, dying little by little. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible to cry in this state. I enter a metamorphosis like a blade enters gray. The smell of sweat, urine, blood coming off me like a scab of the wound. Someone sings in a tree, maybe a bird, but I know it just couldn't be. All the songbirds are gone at this time of year. They're leading us by a wall, it dawns on me. We're going to get killed in the closest ravine. The Gestapo officers smile, young and sincere. I examined his teeth, perfect carnivorous snarl. Each of his eyeballs, temples, cheekbones, ideal. Barely noticed such things in the past, but now I perceive everything. For instance, this butterfly on the gray sunlit wall, bearing witness to me. Soon it will die. Autumn air sparkles, a leaf softly blown by the wind. The cries of the guards break the silence in the ravine. It dawns on me, there is no death, walking through rainbows of dew. Shelley says, it only seems barren and dark. Come and see, joy and light, boundless, stark. And the last poem for today, and this is the Yar. This is the Yar where Hans does his work. These are the shells from the bullets that mark. These are the tracks of the gun of the feet. Hans grew tired. It's quiet. All in one blow. Impossible. Someone would get up and run, perhaps. But Kuna coughs up a laugh and a burst. This is Fritz. He leans over Rivka. 3 wounds. These are earrings, a wedding band, all of them loose. This is her face framed in gold in a braid. This is her belly, a child inside. Rivka senses a heartbeat under her sash. Fritz shoots into her belly and says, what trash. This is Albert, the brother of Jonah the Jew. These are the splinters stuck under his nails. This is the bruise on a pale, dusty face. Sarah whined, let us go, dear Albert, it's time. He was clinging on to the jam, to the house. He would rather be dead within its 4 walls, but instead in a pit, and his skin is with him. This is the sleeve that got torn on the way. Rather, it's trace. This is grass, scarlet clay. These are bodies and corpses. This is Miriam the younger who used to be blessed. This is your daughter wrapped in an embrace by her mother's side. She emanates warmth. This is mist over the Yar, shell pink glow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Max. Just a note that this reading, as with all of the Brooklyn Rail readings, is being recorded and will be available on the Rail's events page and also on its YouTube channel within the next few days. So please feel free to circulate. Our next reader is going to be Dzvinia Orlowsky, who is an award-winning translator, Pushcart Prize poet, and a founding editor of 4-Way Books. She's published 6 books of poems, including A Handful of Bees, Convertible Night, Flurry of Stones, which won a Sheila Moulton Book Award, and Bad Harvest. A 2019 Mass Book Awards Must Read in Poetry. Her poem sequence, The Disenchanted Desna, was selected by Robert Pinsky as a 2019 winner of the New England Poetry Club Samuel Washington Allen Prize. Her co-translations with Ali Kinsella from Ukrainian Eccentric Days of Hope and Sorrow, selected poems by Natalka Biloserkovets, was published by Lost Horse Press in 2021. Please welcome Dzvinia Orlowsky.
Thank you, Brooklyn Rail, Ansel, and Ostap for hosting and curating this event. It is indeed an honor to be here with everyone. Almost all of the poems I'm going to read today are in fact from Ali Kinsella's and my book, Eccentric Days of Hope and Sorrow, which came out from Lost Horse Press this past fall. And we're happy to have just learned a few days ago that it's been shortlisted for the 2022 Griffin Poetry Prize. So that's a little bit of a yay to bring today. And Ali is traveling with her family, so she was not able to join us today, but Ostap has kindly offered to read a few of the poems in Ukrainian. So thank you for that. So a couple of notes for those of you not familiar with Natalka's work. Natalka Biloserkovets is from Kyiv, and she's the author of 5 volumes of poetry. She became most famous in the mid to late 80s and continued to be an important voice up through Ukraine's Declaration of Independence in 1991. The first poem that I'm going to read is titled February, and there's just a couple of notes to kind of familiarize you with some of the context. Georgy Gungadze was a Ukrainian filmmaker and journalist of Georgian descent who was kidnapped and murdered in the early 2000s, and his decapitated body was found in 2001. And the second reference is that a loaf of ceremonial bread presented on embroidered cloth is a symbol of hospitality. So I'll read now February. It's the last month of a long winter we'll survive. After all, we were at fault for something. From the darkness, a knife emerges like the moon. A guitar strums about corpses and forests while our voices endure on cassettes. Some owe less, others more. Some more, others less. Out of our hands, years crawl like worms, yet there's punishment for everything. Unfortunate earth of enslaved dreams, of nasty words, decapitations, of skin burned with acid. Your nightingale tongue ripped out, and only Russian curses, a whistle, a drunken cry heard from under imperial robes. My princess, wife of fish and frogs, your every son, a scoundrel or a slave. Whom to give oneself to and whom to love. On the banks of the eternal river, accountants, majors, their wives, their children sent off to foreign schools. What will grow from the scattered grain? We had to see the naked field. Though some will never get to see the harvest, the sickle will go the way of the foe. They'll beat with flails on the threshing floor, and on an embroidered cloth, our bread will lie like a severed head.
And this is February in Ukrainian. Лютий. Останній місяць довгої зими переживемо. Все-таки і ми у чомусь завинили. І з пітьми виходить ніж, як місяць. І гітара вибренькує про трупи і ліси, і на касетах наші голоси. Хто винен менше, більше, навпаки, хто винен більше, менше. І з руки повзуть роки, неначе черв'яки. І все-таки за все надходить кара. Нещасна земле підневільних снів, мерзенних слів, одрубаних голів, обпаленої кислотою шкіри. Твій солов'їний виразно язик, і тільки мат, і свист, і п'яний крик доносяться з-під княжої порфири. Моя княгине, жоно риб і жаб, твій кожен син – негідник або раб. Кому віддатись і кого любити? Над берегами вічної ріки бухгалтери, майори, їх жінки, і в закордонних школах їхні діти. Що виросте з розкиданих колось, нам голе поле бачить привелось, але жнива таки побачить хтось, і пройде серп ходою супостата. І замолотять ціпом на току, і хліб на вишитім рушнику лежатиме, як голова от тята.
Thank you, Ostap. That was beautiful. The next poem I'd like to read is titled Wolf Wine Bar, and I'll just mention kind of a quirky thing. We were finishing up our manuscript and submitting it to Lost Source Press when Natalka emailed Ali that she was going through her archives in her attic and she had found this poem that she thought was written about 15 years ago, but she very much was thought that we'd like to see it, and we fell in love with it and were able to get it in our manuscript just at the last minute. And so I'd like to read that, and it is the first time that it's ever been published in either language. Wolf Wine Bar. 2 years ago, maybe even 2.5, life hadn't yet seemed so hopeless. Chestnuts didn't choke on rusty blood, and floods didn't reach the windows of the buildings with the Wolf Wine Bar and the Dove Coffee Shop and the small theater under the large lanterns. 2 years ago, maybe even 2.5, we didn't have such severe snows and frosts. Water didn't freeze in the boilers and pipes. Flutes never froze to lips or fingers. The snow didn't stick to legs in thin stockings. Ice didn't appear on carpets in hotels. And the forest fires, tsunamis with women's names, blood and wine on dead legs in thin stockings, carpets covered with the wreckage of aircraft. So be it. There's still time for the final sign, a time when wolves run, doves fly, and having left behind their foundations, pulling out their roots, the Wolf Wine Bar and Dove Coffee Shop will disappear. The lanterns, chestnuts, hotel, and theater.
And this is the Ukrainian original. Винарня вовк. 2 роки тому, навіть 2,5, жити іще не здавалося так безнадійно. Не захлиналися ржавою кров'ю каштани, повені не підступали до вікон будинків. Там, де винарня вовк і кав'ярня голуб, і маленький театр під великими ліхтарями. 2 роки тому, навіть 2,5, ще не було таких лютих снігів і морозів. Не замерзала вода у котлах і рурах, не примерзали флейти до уст і пальців. Сніг не обліплював ноги в тонких панчохах, паморозь не лягала на килими в готелях. І лісові пожежі, цунамі з жіночими іменами, кров і вино на мертвих ногах у тонких панчохах, і килими, засипані уламками літаків. Хай ще лишається час для останнього знаку. Час, коли бігтимуть вовки, летітимуть голуби. І полишивши фундаменти, витягнувши коріння, зникнуть винарня вовк і кав'ярня голуб. Ліхтарі, каштани, готель, театр.
Thank you, Ostap. I'm going to read the next 5 poems straight through in English, and then Ostap and I will close with a poem by Helena Crook. So this next poem is called Elegy to a July Storm. A storm, how debilitating, how alarming, how cheerful. From outside the window, air gusts in like a stream of light, and a warm rail falls unveilingly, like labyrinthine roots of turbulent rivers. Then your breasts, heavy with milk, hurt. The child wails, its mouth greedy, gasping at the air and in the sudden light of a July storm. No one would guess in the dark pupils, the unsure eyes, a certain thought, bright as a storm, here on the plaza of a withered world. A tangle of eternal streets before us, we're going there. But how can we, helpless and tender, go? Which millennium's soft orchards wait to greet us with their snow-white shiver? Where will the wet tracks of past generations of books written in stone lead us? The smell of blood struggle, trouble, intertwined in bewildering chaos. Having pressed the nighttime cry to your body, we move, but where can we go? Cold casements, distant stars in the eyes of empty glass sight. From there we flew into the living world. And in a dream of maternity wards, the pale waxen fires of mysterious love have been stirring. Like a second hand, like a vine in the vineyards of human time, night, sweet and happy and senseless. A storm on stone faces, the tangle of infinite streets before us. Will my tears protect you on this border between being and non-being, and night, and night, and night? Knife. A knife to slice bread, a knife to carve a whistle, a knife to finish killing the lamb wounded by the wolf. Naked, dry, and lean, the cleaned surface of fish foams with sweat in Sabbath day broth, a sign of mercy and tears. Don't touch it without a blessing. This knife is music that kills. These aren't just words, they're poetry without words, where grass washes heaven's blade. Night planes. Overhead, night planes fly past unseen while snow falls on city streets. At 1 a.m., pale streetlights die and the last trams disappear. Now only sleeping buildings remain among ill-lit trees, but the heart is hot, a warm lump of living earth. These days, like years, pass slowly, these days obscured by fog, snow, breakfasts, lunches, monotonous events. But listen, sometimes at night, tragedy's keys will return to their gates. Unfamiliar memories will emerge through the plain's roar. The broken window of a distant school or maybe a church will light in your heart. Or maybe plazas of rickety streets, glades of winter forests. Choirs of weak and fragile voices will sing old lullabies from the sky, first words of vanished first primers. Night planes fly far, leave behind strange silvery ghosts in soldiers' overcoats, in concentration camp jackets, in women's rags, in bright holiday clothes, columns of children, child after child. To what destination? A vision of life at midnight in the hour of violent planes. Not everyone has returned. Not everyone has returned. Not all names have been revived. Silence has not yet been lifted from every crime. Leaden shadows lay at the feet of gray buildings. Give me their pedigree from the 30s to the 80s, where the state machine ground their bones and minds, where the bloody work had not yet stopped. Let the names converge on dry Kazakh sands, on Kolyma's gold dust, on Moldova's mud. Let us into the archives, the lists, the denouncements, reports, to the soft depositions, the hard red revolutions, to know in person who stoked those October embers and eviscerated the country by counter-revolutionary fires. Here a people died out. Here vodka crushed parents. Here peers language from acetone and rock, while at the top powerful portraits of leaders floated. A mustache twitched, eyebrows furrowed self-righteously. And when I look at trees in pink dew, at children, at the honey flowers which wander the meadows, not everyone has returned, but not everyone has gone yet. Our song is not the same, and all our rebukes have rusted. And the last one. Swallows. A last attempt to fly off somewhere from this coop, from this stable, from this bedroom where the urgent sweet smells of an animal's nest hang there to there. To caress heavens touched where electrical wires are like a pedestal, and the fiery strokes of a rainbow, the unsettled comforts of a poor life. Like black mittens from our fingers, like the black and white keys of a piano. Like festival fireworks at night, they fly from their native nest. They're already there, invisible. Like the endless sound of the final abyss, so fearless and so cold, the solitary flights of our lives. And we'd like to close with a poem by Helena Crook, and just some information for you. Helena Crook was born in Lviv in 1974. She is a poet, writer of fiction, a scholar of Ukrainian medieval literature. She authored 4 books of poetry and has been awarded some of Ukraine's top awards for young poets. She also writes books for children and young adults. Now, Ostap, I have misplaced my English version, so while I take a second to find it on my phone, would you mind reading the Ukrainian and give the
Sure.
English title, please?
Sure. So this is by Helena Crook. Носимося зі своїми мертвими, як діти. Поскладали їх на майдані, обступили колом, на морозі, на снігу, розгублені, ніби ніхто з нас досі не знав, що померти так просто. Кожен все ще надіється, що полежать і встануть. Бо що казати їхнім мамам? Що казати їхнім дітям? Хто їм скаже про найгірше? Людина біжить назустріч кулі із дерев'яним щитом, із гарячим серцем, із головою в лижному шоломі, повному крові. Мамо, я в шапці, кричить у мертву трубку. Мамо, у нього надто тонка шапка, сичить куля.
Thank you, Ostap. So this is translated by Ali Kinsella and myself. We carry our dead. We carry our dead like children, lay them out in the plaza and encircle them in the frost, the snow, bewildered as if none of us yet knew it was so easy to die. Everyone still hopes they will lie there and then get up. For what should we tell their moms? What to tell their children? Who will tell them the worst? A person runs to meet a bullet with a wooden shield and a hot heart and a head in a ski helmet full of blood. Mom, I've got my hat on, he shouts into a dead phone. Mom, his hat is too thin, the bullet hisses. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dzvinia. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Dzvinia. So we're going to conclude the reading today by hearing from Ostap Kin. And Ostap, thank you for organizing this and getting everybody together. I'm really grateful. Ostap is the editor and co-translator with John Hennessy of Babyn Yar, Ukrainian Poets Respond, which is forthcoming this year from the Harvard Ukrainian Research Institute, and the editor of an anthology, New York Elegies, Ukrainian Poems on the City, published in 2019 by Academic Studies Press. He is also the co-translator with John Hennessy of A New Orthography, Selected Poems by Serhiy Zhadan, published in 2020 by Lost Horse, and with Vitaly Chernetsky of Songs for a Dead Rooster, Selected Poems by Yuri Andrukhovych, also published by Lost Horse Press in 2018. Please welcome Ostap.
Thank you, Brooklyn Rail, for producing this event. Thank you, Caroline, Nick, and Anselm for your help. Thank you, Dzvinia and Luba. Thank you, Ilya and Max, for your readings. I will be reading poems by Serhiy Zhadan. These poems I co-translated with John Hennessy, and these poems are from the collection called A New Orthography. The poems I'm going to read are from Serhiy's collection published in 2018, and the cycle I'm going to read is titled We've Been Talking About War for 3 years. Those poems are untitled, so I will just name them by their sequence. So 1. A friend of mine volunteered. He came back 6 months later. Who knows where he was? He won't say what he is afraid of, but he is afraid of something. Sometimes it seems he is afraid of everything. He left a normal person, but he talked too much about everything in this world, about everything he came across. And he came back completely changed, as if someone took his old tongue and didn't leave him a new one. So he sits in his bed every day and listens to the demons in his head. The first demon is ferocious. He pours out white heat, demands punishment for all the living. The second demon is submissive, talks about forgiveness, speaks quietly, touches the heart with hands covered in black soil. But the worst is the third demon. He agrees with the other two. He agrees, doesn't object. As soon as he speaks, the headaches begin. 2. We've been talking about war for 3 years. Learned to talk about our past in light of the war. Learned to make plans around the war. We have words to show our anger. We have words to express our sorrow. We have words to signify our contempt. We have words for curses, prayers. We have all the necessary words to describe ourselves in a time of war. It's very important for us to talk about ourselves in a time of war. We can't help talking about ourselves in a time of war. We think it's unacceptable to be silent about ourselves. Every morning we talk about war. Stand before the mirror and talk about war. Talk with the one we see in front of us. smart words, smart and convincing, smart questions, smart answers. Every morning we remind each other of the number of people killed. In the afternoon we enjoy a flash of sunshine outside the window. Fresh grass that tries to penetrate the dead stones. But by evening, once again, we remind each other of the number of people killed. It's very important for us to remind everyone of the number of people killed. It's very important we be the ones who remind everyone of the number of people killed. It's very important that they learn the number of people killed from us. We don't give anyone a chance. We cut reality with garden shears. We go over it thoroughly. Give it a disappointing diagnosis. For 3 years, we've been expressing our opinions. For 3 years, we've talked standing in front of the mirror. There is no need to be afraid of asking tough questions, and no fear getting uncomfortable answers. Only the most self-confident talk about it loudly, and the less confident quietly. But it doesn't have any effect on the number of people killed anyway. Three. This is the family they have now. These are the conversations they have. They agree not to argue in order to at least get through August under the shelling. So they don't talk about politics, not to argue. They don't talk about church, not to argue. And they don't talk about God, not to argue. They don't talk about their relatives who left. They don't talk about their friends who stayed. They don't talk about the guy from the next building who is fighting. They recall their neighbor. The neighbor you can talk about. The neighbor died. You feel sorry for the neighbor. Although God has also died, but for some reason, you don't feel sorry. You don't feel sorry at all. Six. Sun, terrace, lots of green. A guy and a girl. Most likely they are students. Sit at a table, waiting, it seems, for their order. Nearby, on the table, notebooks, folders with documents. They must have just stopped by between classes. After lunch, they'll continue running errands. So grown up, so serious. What else? It looks like they rent an apartment, don't like to cook, eat where they are, don't want to waste time cooking, don't want to waste time on little things. You should treat life like clothing. Did you try on before buying? You've got to learn not to waste time on little things. Someday, she'll definitely have her own house. Someday, he'll definitely find a good job. You need to learn everything. You'll need to learn to choose the right words to talk about love and humanity. Dust, flowers, lots of green, the spring of last year. This is the only photo where we are together, she says. Here I am angry at him. You see, I am even looking in the other direction. I am not talking to him. Then the war started. He went, and that's it. Seven. Here is another weird story. A story about our illusions, about our impotence. At the library, she always stuck to the shelves with books by her favorite authors. She stood by those shelves like a woman standing before a mirror in the morning, trusting but hesitating a bit. Poets with precise rhymes can't be mistaken. They always offer solutions. They always comfort you when you are down. One of the first missiles fell right on the library. Books flew across the street like torn pillows, and letters hung in the June air like the dust of burned synagogues. Poetry didn't help much. The poets kept quiet. Not one chose the precise rhyme for the name of the blown-up schoolgirl who ran there in the morning to return books she'd read. When the army came in, when they repaired the stocks, when they started to bring in new books as if they wanted to fill her up with a new language, namely with a new joy, she kept standing and talking, trying to be understood, trying to seem persuasive. Who listened to her then? Who needed her words? It's hopeless to shield yourself with a great dead literature when you're in the way of people marching towards death. It's hopeless, unfair. Most importantly, I didn't betray my poets, she thought. I definitely didn't betray them. She thought that, but didn't say it out loud. She was afraid. She was thankful. She hung around the shelf with the dead poets as if she were near a radiator which hadn't worked in a long time. And this is going to be the last one. But now I know, he says, what war is like. And what is it like, I ask him. Nothing, he answers. He talks like he knows what he is saying. After internment, he speaks expertly about all of it, that is, with hatred. The way he talks, it's better not to argue. He won't agree anyway. He'll hold his ground, believing this is the greatest virtue in a time of war, to hold your ground, to deny the sun, to deny the tides of the ocean. So here goes. War, it's nothing. The way they talk about it like that, without adjectives. How did you feel? Nothing. How did they treat you? Nothing. How do you talk about it? Nothing. How do we live with all this now? Thank you.
Thank you, Ostap. And again, thank you for putting this together. And our thanks to Ilya Kaminsky, Dzvinia Orlowsky, Max Rosochinsky, and Luba Yakimchuk. Thank you all for being here and sharing all this work with us. Ostap, do you know when the anthology is going to come out? The one that you've been working on most recently?
Hopefully sometime in the fall of this year.
Well, keep us posted. Maybe we'll do another, we could do another reading through the series when the anthology comes out. Thanks everybody for being here. I think now is a good point for us to just do what we normally do at the end and open up the everybody's mic to just say hello and goodbye and thank you as we all move on into the days.
Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you,
reading.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Big thanks.
Thank you.
It's great to hear all of your voices.
Wonderful.
Thank
to hear
you.
all.
Amazingly
Thank
powerful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
good
much.
care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much.
Thank you, Luba.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ilya,
Seeing you. Hi, Luba.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all virtually. Hope to meet you in person sometime.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you again. Be safe. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. All the best. Take care.
Thank you, Ostap.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.